Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." The thesis today is this: since death and judgment are inevitable, it is always time to pay attention to laying up treasures in heaven, not on earth, and that's soul investment. In the preceding verses and chapter, Jesus has just taught them how to pray. We'll hear that prayer at communion. He taught them how to persevere in prayer. He taught them to beware of demons, to watch out for unclean spirits. He said the light of the body is the eye. He denounced Pharisees and lawyers. He warned against hypocrisy. He advised all to a fearless confession of their sins. And that led to the question of today, the parable of the rich fool, where Jesus is called rabbi in the Gospels over 50 times. And quite often the rabbi was called in to settle family disputes. As a young man, it is assumed that Joseph died and that Jesus worked in the carpenter shop for 18 years, called the lost years. He knew the problems and the necessities of earning a living for a family. He knew the necessity of money, of taxes, of property. He knew that we live in a material world, that we do not live in a vacuum. We live in a world of things. So Jesus taught in parables, an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And his parables developed the art of storytelling. Storytelling appeals to everyone. Remember when your kids were small, they'd crawl up and say, "Tell me a story." And most of us wish that we had more chances to tell stories, don't we? To those young kids, we'd do a better job, wouldn't we? We'd spend more time to the import of those stories. So a parable helps a person discover a truth for themselves. Jesus lays out the parable, and sometimes the two before hits one when they arrive home. So then and now, the issue of inheritance is always a big issue. And isn't it funny that Jesus refused to comment upon it? Life is not about possessions. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. So I have three things to run by you today. Maybe it won't take too long, Bill. First, do not step in, as Jesus refused to do, to try to solve problems for other people. In the psychological and social world, Murray Bowen, the great family therapist, called it getting triangled. You get hurt when you get triangled. I knew an LPN in Illinois who quit her job, probably at that time making $4 or $5 an hour, to take care of her mother. Mother was dying of cancer. She had two sisters. She extended herself beyond all of her means and measures and required help of the church and community. Margaret was modest in looks, dress, and means, faithful in much. Mother died. Margaret came wanting to know what to do. Her two sisters wanted their share of the inheritance. All she could do was call in to estimate the value of the home. It was sold on the market, and that home sold for $2,700. And the two sisters were awarded $900 each. Margaret had to sell the home. Up the street, I had a choir of Alberts, about 35 to 40 people. In the choir was a very proud man that ran the elevator at the Salt Lake Holy Cross Hospital, now Salt Lake Regional, as a volunteer for years. He was 88, 89 years old. Percy Clark believed that St. Paul had come to Great Britain. Great scholar and reader, and he got me to read some of that. Percy had hearing aids, but he loved to sing a tenor. Now the problem was that Percy could not tell when the note cut off and when to enter. And Percy sang his own song. Now I was young in the ministry. Albert was old in the song leading business. He had directed the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. He came and sat down. I'm 35 years old. Could you talk to Percy and take care of this problem? He doesn't know when to enter and to leave, and he's ruining our choir. Guess what I did? I rushed in and solved the problem. Percy and Dolores, lovely people, quit the church. Fools rush in to solve other people's problems. This week I had company. They entertained guests in their home, and the guests got drunk. So much that they had to take the keys away from him and hide them. Eventually they had him sleep in their motor home. The next morning, the missus was really upset that this man had